In recent years, I have noticed a growing trend of people of various ages, from 20s to 30s and the 60-year-olds in different countries that I have traveled, including China, India, Europe, the Philippines, and the Middle East, being prescribed a synthetic thyroid hormone medication, thyroxine, at the slightest sign of thyroid hormone imbalances. This widespread distribution of the medication has aroused my curiosity, as it may be diverting attention away from addressing the underlying causes of these hormonal imbalances. Unfortunately, the synthetic hormone medication thyroxine cannot prevent the thyroid gland from getting destroyed. So, I encourage you to pay close attention to this episode for valuable insight into the necessary steps and actions to protect your thyroid from potential destruction. Stay tuned. In this episode, we will take a brief look at the thyroid gland and its functions, i.e., what it does and how it makes the hormones and why we need it. Next, we'll briefly review the different organ systems involved in the production of the important hormones the body uses to run its functions. Then we take a look at the issues where things can go wrong and does go wrong with the thyroid. Finally, we'll discuss the solutions, nutrients, and supplements required to maintain and resolve thyroid issues. Before we get started, I'll give you the key points. The thyroid gland issues exist in two forms. One is the thyroid hormonal imbalances, too much or too little thyroid hormones are produced. And then two is the thyroid tissue damage due to autoimmune attacks. While synthetic hormone replacement drug thyroxine is useful for those who have lost their thyroid, individuals with a functioning thyroid should investigate and address the underlying causes of their thyroid hormonal imbalances in TSH, free T4, and free T3. Simply relying on a synthetic hormone drug thyroxine will not address the autoimmune attacks on the thyroid, which can lead to its total destruction if left untreated. This is why it is very important to always include the anti-TPO and anti-thyroglobulin lab tests to check for the presence of any autoimmune attacks. Here are a list of nutrients, supplements, and minerals to address both thyroid issues, i.e. autoimmune attacks, as well as the hormonal imbalances issues. Also, here I've included food sources for these key nutrients if the supplements are not readily available. Stay tuned for more. Located at the base of the neck, the thyroid gland is responsible for producing vital hormones that regulates many functions throughout the body. Without it, a replacement synthetic hormone called thyroxine will have to be taken by anyone who has lost their thyroid gland through surgical operation. How the hormones are made and why they are important. The brain. The hypothalamus sends TRH signal to the pituitary gland in the brain. The pituitary gland sends TSH signal to the thyroid. Now, the thyroid gland receives the TSH signal and then produces T4 hormones and sends the T4 to the liver. The liver then takes the T4 hormones from the thyroid and converts it to T3, which is the active form of the thyroid hormone. The liver then sends the T3 to all relevant organs, the heart, the reproductive system, the kidneys, and the feedback loop to the brain. The end product, the active T3 hormones, controls the body's calorie utilization rates, energy expenditure, metabolism, menstrual cycle, heart function, and many organ function and processes. A small amount of T4 is also converted to T3 in the heart and in the digestive system, but the liver does the majority of the conversion process. So it is very important that we understand these steps so that we can quickly see where things can go wrong and why many individuals end up wrongly prescribed the synthetic T4 medication thyroxine. We will revisit this diagram later in this podcast to map out what could go wrong in the process and how to rectify it using the relevant nutrients and supplements. How do I know if my thyroid needs some support or have some issues? Here are the generic list of symptoms for hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. A hypothyroidism is when the thyroid is not producing enough hormones, and a hyperthyroidism is when the thyroid is producing too much hormones. Sleepiness, weight gain or weight loss, hair loss, including heat intolerance and excessive sweating, tiredness and fatigue, digestive issues, and the list goes on and on. Although these are good indicators of something not right in the body, but the more accurate way to know the health of the thyroid is to perform some diagnostic tests. Diagnostics. Based on my research findings and my experiences, it is extremely important to always look at the full thyroid panel rather than a subset. I have categorized things into two groups here, the blood work, group A, and the imaging. Usually, they look at the TSH and free T4 in most cases and often overlook the rest of the biomarkers. This is where I see many individuals get prescribed and given the synthetic T4 medications when the T4 is off the reference range. In my opinion, this is a medical malpractice for those diagnosing and prescribing these medications with incomplete information by only looking at these two biomarkers. I have seen friends put on these drugs, and when I ask to look at the lab reports, I see TSH and T4, nothing else. I have also seen friends have their thyroid gland removed after decades of taking the synthetic T4 medications, all due to misdiagnosis of the underlying root causes of their thyroid dysfunction. We want to be checking all the relevant thyroid-related biomarkers as a minimum. We want to be looking at TSH, free T4, free T3, anti-TPO, and anti-thyroglobulin. If the TPO and the anti-thyroglobulin antibodies biomarkers are elevated, i.e. above the 30 international units, some lab reference ranges may vary. We can always make adjustments for those. Then we know there's an attack on the thyroid gland that must be addressed. More on that shortly. If any of the TSH, free T4, free T3 biomarkers are out of range, then we can assume there's some form of nutritional deficiencies at play. At this point, we will require some further precision check or precision testing. Narrowing down the root causes. For TSH, free T4, free T3 hormonal imbalances, we want to check our vitamins and mineral levels to see which of these nutrients deficiency could be the root cause. We want to check for vitamin B12, B9, D, serum iodine, selenium, magnesium, zinc, iron, ferritin, omega-3 index, as these are the key nutrients required for adequate thyroid hormone production. For elevated anti-TPO, i.e. anti-thyroid peroxidase antibodies and the anti-thyroglobulin antibodies, this means the thyroid gland is under attack by our immune system and the cells are getting damaged gradually. So we want an ultrasound scan to see if there are any visible signs of damage to the thyroid gland tissues from the autoimmune attack. The visual imaging can also reveal if there are any thyroid nodules on the glands, i.e. lumps and cysts. Now let's look at how nutrients can support the thyroid function. The TSH is produced in the brain, so if the TSH is out of range from the lab test, it makes sense to consider adding some B vitamins, fish oil, magnesium L-threonate. If the free T4 and free T3 is out of range, then it makes sense to look at increasing iodine intake and optimizing vitamin C, B, magnesium, and selenium, along with fish oils, Ds, and vitamin A. Selenium is required for the liver to convert the T4 hormones to T3. So if there are too many free T4 and low free T3 swimming around in the bloodstream, not bound to a protein, then it makes sense to optimize selenium intake. All of these vitamins and minerals play a key role in the successful production and utilization of the hormone as they move through the processes. Zinc. Adequate zinc is required for optimal level of T3, T4, and TSH production. We can supplement zinc based on the lab report findings. Magnesium. Magnesium is necessary for hundreds of processes in the body. Carbohydrate, foods, overdose, and stress can steal your magnesium and lead to magnesium deficiency. So a low magnesium level can impact thyroid function, affecting T4 and T3 conversion processes. So check your magnesium level, and as part of the precision checks discussed in the previous chapter, and then supplement accordingly. The recommended type of magnesium supplements are magnesium citrate, glycinate, and magnesium L-threonate can cross the blood-brain barrier and get into the brain to support neurons and the mitochondria in the brain. There are other metabolic issues such as insulin resistance and fatty liver disease that can affect the function of the thyroid. And we want to perform tests for those to rule them out and or address them if necessary based on lab work. We will discuss insulin resistance in depth in another episode. But for now, you can do the following. To rule out insulin resistance, you would do a fasting insulin lab test, HbA1c, which is hemoglobin A1c, and then fasting glucose. The three together gives a complete picture of our sugar control level. To rule out fatty liver disease, we want to perform ultrasound abdomen and add some basic liver function tests such as ALT and AST. Complete metabolic panel would help, but it is not necessary at this point. If the anti-TPO and anti-thyroglobulin antibodies are severely elevated, then we can conclude an autoimmune attack is on the thyroid gland. Taking the synthetic T4 medication in this case is exercising futility. The primary focus should be on stopping the ongoing autoimmune attack to preserve thyroid function. The question is, what drove the immune system to behave this way? Well, due to a mistaken identity, the immune system creates antibodies that attacks the thyroid gland cells, mistaking the thyroid cells as a foreign substance or bacteria and viruses. This autoimmune attack is caused by leaky gut syndrome, intestinal hyperpermeability. As discussed in a different episode, foreign substances leaks into the bloodstream, thereby causing the immune system to overreact and wrongly tag the thyroid gland and mount an attack on its cells. If untreated over time, the thyroid tissues is damaged and destroyed. The immune system is so powerful it can disintegrate the thyroid gland within the 5 to 10 years if not resolved. The resolution is to seal the leaky gut and calm the immune system. If the ultrasound imaging results shows no visible signs of tissue damage, no thyroid nodules, lumps, cysts on the thyroid gland, then this means the autoimmune attack is a recent one and not yet severe, which means the immune system can be quieted down quickly to stop the attack. However, if there are visible signs of damage to the thyroid tissues, then this means the damage started a few years earlier and a drastic measure needs to be taken to stop the attack and reverse course. How do we go about calming down the immune system? For a fast and effective result, you would need to do intermittent fasting, preferably 16 to 18-hour fast every day. You can start the process gradually. Then you need to drastically review all your current food intake and cut out processed foods and chemical additives, preservatives, and emulsifiers that promotes leaky gut. You need to identify your sensitive foods, remove them immediately, including those wheat flours and gluten products. We want to bring in fiber-rich foods, green leafy vegetables, polyphenol-rich foods, tubers, and root vegetables. Wrapping up, here are all the nutrients summarized and categorized in two parts: autoimmune attack fix and the hormonal imbalances fix. These nutrients, vitamins, minerals will restore the normal function of the thyroid. So it makes sense to properly and thoroughly look at all 5 key biomarkers as part of a thyroid panel lab test for accurate diagnosis. We want to make sure our thyroid is not under attack by our immune system by checking the anti-TPO antibodies and anti-thyroglobulin antibodies, along with the hormonal TSH, free T4, free T3 tests. We want to use ultrasound scan to check the physical structure and the tissue health of the thyroid. And if necessary, we want to check for our nutritional deficiencies such as vitamins and mineral statuses to ensure we have adequate supply of nutrient, not just for our thyroid, but for our overall bodily functions. If the supplements are out of reach, here are the food sources for all the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals needed to support a healthy function of the thyroid. As always, we must remove inflammatory foods. You can take a screenshot of this now. This concludes the episode on how to save and protect your thyroid gland. Wishing you a good thyroid health.